Hey veterans, Shariful here, VA disability claim expert and a fellow veteran who's been through the system just like you. Let me ask you something real. Have you ever held that big white envelope from the VA in your hands, heart pounding, breath held, just praying this time would be different? And then, you open it and see those dreaded words, "We regret to inform you," or worse, "Your claim is denied." I know exactly what that feels like. I've been there. And over the past decade, I've spoken with thousands of veterans who've had the same gut punch experience. They followed all the rules. Solid name, collected medical record. Filled out every form, Ol Solid name, showed up at that stressful CNP exam, Ol Solid name, waited weeks or months, and still got denied. Let me tell you right now, it's not your fault. The VA system is complex, frustrating, and often broken, but denial doesn't mean defeat. In fact, I'm going to show you something most vets never hear. The top 3 reasons most VA claims get denied, and exactly how to fix them. Whether this is your first claim or your 5th appeal, if you've ever felt ignored, overlooked, or like the system doesn't care, this video is for you. Stick with me to the end, because by the time we're done, you won't just understand why you were denied, you'll know how to fight back, and finally get the rating you deserve. Let's jump right into the first and by far the most common reason for denial: lack of medical evidence. This is where it all starts. The VA is very clear about this. To approve your claim, they need solid, clearly documented proof of your condition. What does that mean in real terms? Documentation, medical records, doctor's notes, test results, x-rays, MRIs, prescriptions, progress notes, you name it. But here's the problem. A lot of veterans, myself included, when I first filed, think, my back's been hurting for years. Or, I told the doc every time I deployed, I know it's in my record somewhere. But when we go back and look, the record is thin, or spotty, or in some cases, totally missing. Why is this so common? There are a few main reasons. While serving, you might not have wanted to go to sick call for every ache and pain. You had a job to do. Records might have been lost, especially with older paper files or moves between bases. Civilian doctors may not always send notes to the VA or use different terminology that doesn't translate well. How does this hurt your claim? If the VA looks at your file and doesn't clearly see diagnosed conditions tied to your time in the service or tracked by doctors since, they'll often say there isn't enough evidence to grant your claim. Here's the fix. This is something you can absolutely tackle. Let's get practical. Gather every relevant medical record. Start by getting a complete copy of your service treatment records. Request these from the National Personnel Records Center or through your e-benefits account. Get all private medical records, not just VA clinic visits. If you saw a civilian doctor or specialist after you got out, call and request progress notes, test results, and letters about your condition. Include ER visits, physical therapy, chiropractors, anything that documents your symptoms and how they affect your life. 2. Get up-to-date documentation. If you haven't seen a doctor in a while, make an appointment. Even if it's just to document ongoing symptoms, get it in writing. Ask your provider to write a summary letter outlining your diagnosis, symptoms, and treatment. The VA sometimes loses paperwork or doesn't know about your private records unless you specifically send them in. Upload documents directly via va.gov or bring them to your nearest VA office and get a receipt. Prepare a buddy statement, a written statement from a fellow service member or supervisor who witnessed your injury or symptoms. These statements are legally valid evidence. Imagine a veteran named Mike. Mike hurt his knee during a field exercise in Germany, but he never went to the med tent. Years later, he struggles to walk and needs surgery. The VA denied his claim because no service medical records found for knee injury. But Mike didn't give up. He got statements from his old squad leader and 2 platoon buddies. They wrote about witnessing the injury and how Mike limped for weeks. He also got recent doctor's notes about his knee pain. On appeal, with all this evidence, his claim was granted. Wrap up for reason. Remember, the VA can't read your mind or guess what happened. The burden is on you to provide as much medical evidence as possible, but that's something you can control. The second big reason for VA denial: no nexus letter. You might hear this called the nexus requirement, or medical opinion linking your condition to service. The word nexus just means connection. What's the nexus letter and why is it so important? Let's break it down. The VA wants to see that your current condition isn't just a coincidence. In other words, are your symptoms actually caused by or related to something that happened during your military service? They call this the service connection. It's part 2 of a 3-part test. 1. You have a current diagnosed disability. 2. There's evidence of an event, injury, or illness in service. 3. Medical evidence. A nexus letter connects 1 and 2. Most claims get hung up on step 3. If you just send in symptoms, my shoulder hurts, or even a diagnosis, arthritis, right shoulder, that's not enough. The VA wants a professional's opinion, tying those symptoms to something from your service, an accident, exposure, repetitive motion, etc. How to fix a missing nexus letter. 1. Ask your doctor for a nexus letter. This should be a written, signed letter from a qualified medical professional who is licensed, usually an MD, DO, or sometimes a PA or NP with expertise in the issue. In the letter, the provider needs to state whether in their medical opinion your condition is at least as likely as not caused or aggravated by your service. Boilerplate, I believe Mr. Smith's knee pain is related to his service. Ask for details. How did your injury, work, or exposure directly lead to your current condition? 2. Make it evidence-based. Encourage your doctor to reference your service medical records, STRs, civilian records, and maybe even medical literature. Example, Mr. Smith's service records from 2004 show repeated complaints of right knee pain following a jump injury. Today's MRI confirms chronic meniscal damage consistent with that mechanism. The more thoroughly your provider explains their reasoning, the more weight the VA will give their opinion. Use independent medical opinions, IMOs. If you can't get your primary doctor to write a letter, or if the VA's examiner wrote a negative opinion, consider an IMO from a private provider who specializes in writing nexus letters. Yes, these often cost money, but for complicated or strongly contested claims, they can make a huge difference. Don't forget secondary conditions. A nexus letter isn't just for direct injuries. If your service-connected knee injury led to hip or back problems, ask your doctor to write a statement linking those as secondary conditions. Let's talk about Lisa, a Navy veteran who developed migraines years after separating. Her claim was denied because the VA said no service connection established. But Lisa did her homework. She went back to her primary care doctor and explained her history of headaches and stress during service and how the migraines intensified after. Her doctor referenced medical articles about post-traumatic stress and migraines and wrote a detailed nexus letter connecting the dots. Lisa submitted the new letter with her appeal, and her claim was approved. There's no special VA form required for a nexus letter, but quality matters. Make sure it's on letterhead, signed, dated, and detailed. Remember, the phrase "at least as likely as not" is key for VA standards. Now, for the third major reason VA claims get denied: C&P exam problems. Most veterans know the C&P exam, the compensation and pension exam, is a big part of the VA process. This is where the VA hires a doctor, sometimes a VA employee, sometimes a contractor, to review your file, ask you questions, and write up notes to help the VA decide your claim. So what goes wrong? Sometimes the examiner rushes the appointment, doesn't ask enough questions, or seems to downplay your symptoms. In other cases, the summary report in your file doesn't match what you said during the exam, or leaves out details you find important. Occasionally, the examiner may not be an expert in your particular condition. These poor or incomplete exam notes can lead to the VA denying your claim outright, citing no evidence of disability or not as severe as claimed. How you can fix and prevent C&P exam issues. Prepare. Before your C&P exam, write down all your symptoms. Don't assume you'll remember everything under pressure. Be specific about frequency, severity, and impact on your work and daily life. For example, instead of "my back hurts," say "my lower back pain is present daily, 7-10 on the pain scale, and makes it difficult to tie my shoes." Bring a symptom diary if you can. Written logs of flare-ups, treatments, work absences, and restrictions. 2. Be honest and consistent. Tell the truth, even if it's uncomfortable or embarrassing. Don't exaggerate, but don't minimize either. Make sure the history and symptoms you share at the exam line up with what's in your medical records and statements. 3. Clarify and correct on the spot. If the examiner says something you disagree with or omits a comment, politely correct them at the time. "Actually, that pain never goes away, and I can't sit or stand for longer than 15 minutes. If they rush, ask to slow down, or ask them to repeat or clarify a question. 4. After the exam, check your notes. Request a copy of the examiner's notes, called the DBQ, Disability Benefits Questionnaire, or C&P Summary. Review it carefully for errors, omissions, or misunderstandings. You have the legal right to rebut the exam findings. Write a sworn statement, VA Form 21438, explaining where the examiner got it wrong, and submit it as evidence. If the errors are significant, request a new exam, especially if your records or statements contradict the examiner's summary. John, an Army infantry vet, had a C&P exam for PTSD. He was nervous, and the examiner's questions were rapid fire. John's summary came back saying symptoms mild, when he'd actually described constant anxiety and panic attacks. John got a copy of his notes, wrote a detailed correction, and included statements from his therapist and his spouse describing his daily challenges. On appeal, the VA reconsidered severity and granted a higher rating. You can bring a spouse, family member, or friend to your C&P exam as a witness or support person, and their presence can help you remember key details too. Let's pull it all together. If your VA claim was denied, don't let it end your journey. The vast majority of denials come down to these three issues: lack of medical evidence, no nexus letter, or poor exam notes. And every one of these problems can be addressed with the right strategy, patience, and support. Collect and organize every piece of evidence. If you don't have it, get it. Make the connection from your service to your health. Help doctors help you by asking for a solid nexus letter. Prepare for and follow up after your C&P exam. Be your own best advocate, and don't be afraid to push for accuracy. You served your country. You earned these benefits. The process is tough, but you are not alone. Whether it's a first claim, a reopened case, or an appeal, don't give up. Thousands of veterans have faced denials and gone on to win the benefits they deserve, and you can too. If you found value in this video, please like, subscribe, and share with another veteran who needs to hear this. And if you have questions, drop them in the comments. I try to answer as many as I can. Remember, knowledge is power. You've got this, and I'm here with you every step of the way.